Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Manual Font Show. It is Monday. It's Labor Day at the time of this recording, anyway. I would have loved to have given you a whole week's worth of content, guys, but it's fucking hot out here. I mean, we're talking triple digits. I do have an air conditioner in the studio, but it does get hot regardless, and I would sweat buckets, and I really didn't want to be out here during the heat wave, cooking, if it were, or if you will, or if you could, however you want to say it. I don't care. But anyway, I don't really care how you say it. But anyway, thank you guys for jumping on and listening to me on this Monday. We're gonna do like a rebuttal, and we're gonna get into the normalcy of news and in the news stories and stuff. And there's this thing, and I've been in TikTok for a little bit, and then I've been kind of listening to a lot of these live debaters, and most of the time it's, why do you hate Trump? And it's a lot of stupid statements that don't exactly, like spark debate. Why do you support Trump? Because I do. Why? Because I do. What? And it's like, come on. Or there was one that I saw was, if you support the lives of children, you don't support the Second Amendment. I saw that one, and I was like, that is the stupidest fucking thing ever, because I can do both. I could support the Second Amendment, and I could support the safety of children. Obviously, that argument isn't making any sense. You're just trying to spark some kind of dumbass outrage. And then, of course, a lot of these guys are excruciatingly rude and stupid, and it's the reason why I don't chime in, is because they will hit the mute button, they will shut you off, and they don't want to hear what you have to say, statistics or anything of that nature. And I've come across quite a few of these guys on TikTok that I've listened to, and I'm just like, I don't know if you really know what you're saying. The latest one, it goes by the username of Kramer Cash. I think his real name is Isaiah, because he has the headline is Isaiah obliterates Trump supporter over Trump's Afghanistan failure. And I'm going to play this, and then we're going to have a conversation. A rebuttal, if you will. However you want to fucking say it. Happy holidays, by the way, to this amazing Monday. Here we go.
Then how did the Taliban take over as soon as we left?
Because you're the one who freed them, dingus.
No, dingus. Let's fucking think about this. If we would have
the one who freed
used
them.
our military,
You're the one who freed them. You are literally the ones who freed the Taliban. You're the one who put them out there. There would be no Taliban to fight if your stupid asses didn't go and free them.
You're so stupid.
That's right. That's what I thought. You don't know facts. Facts don't care about your feelings.
No, I do know facts, but you're
facts
stupid.
Don't care about your feelings.
No, you're stupid. You don't understand.
This is what happens when you sit there and you salivate over every single word that Donald Trump says, and you're so not willing to understand the facts that you're so desperate to blame Joe Biden for a situation that was caused by your incompetent, inept president. Oh! That's what I'm talking about. Y'all think
Let's talk about Afghanistan. What he is referring to is what he's referring to as Trump starting this all, which is absolute horseshit. This dude's 26 years old. He obviously hasn't lived an ounce in his life to even know what the fuck he's even talking about in concerning Afghanistan. He's trying to tell this guy that the 5,000 troop. The 5,000 prisoner swap to get the Trump withdrawal started in a negotiation. He's trying to say that freeing those 5,000 is what made it an issue in the withdrawal. That's his argument. He's trying to say that those 5,000 troops, if you didn't release them, they wouldn't have no one to fight. That is the dumbest fucking argument. That is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard come out of this dude's mouth. And nobody's going to push back on it. They're all going to call him stupid because he is, but then they're going to leave. But here's the issue that I have. He's 26 and he hasn't read a book in his life. He doesn't have any concept of what the fuck happened in Afghanistan. Those 5,000 prisoners weren't going to put it over the top. The Taliban were already there in massive numbers. It had nothing to do with those 5,000. During Obama's presidency, up until 2021, so 2012 to 2021, a little bit of Trump is in there. From 2012 to 2014, the estimated active fighters was 25,000. They weren't hiding up in a fucking cave anywhere. They weren't sitting at home playing Tetris. They were 25,000 active fighters. In 2018, they surged to 40,000. By the time 2021 came along, they estimated, which was right at the time of the withdrawal, they estimated the troop surge at 60 to 70,000 active Taliban fighters, with additional support networks and sympathizers pushing that ecosystem well above 100,000, including logistics, intelligence, local enablers. They had seasonal warfare fighters. They had territorial gains, which he's not exactly aware of, it seems, where they had taken a large amount of territory outside of the capital. The only spot the United States even controlled 100% was the fucking capital. Everything outside of Kabul was complete Taliban control or partial Taliban control. They estimated in the Defense Department was 30% of the area was controlled by the Taliban. This guy is saying that there's 5,000 prisoners is what caused the issues in the withdrawal. If he didn't do that, we wouldn't have the problem. That's horseshit. There was nearly 100,000 troops hanging out outside the fucking capital waiting for the U.S. to leave. Those 5,000 troops / prisoners didn't mean shit. They didn't do anything to effectuate any kind of massive change to the entire issue. What's nuts about this is not only did the U.S. only control Kabul, the capital, they controlled an airfield that they built. It was one of the largest bases in Afghanistan. It was the Bagram airfield. That was 100% controlled by the United States of America. You could get large planes off of there. You could get anything off the ground there. And it was logistics, intelligence. It was a forward operating base. It was the thing. And the Kandahar base, a Taliban stronghold historically, but of course the U.S. and Canadian forces secured parts of that city as well. And the airfield there was a major NATO base, but that was it. Everything else was Taliban controlled. They weren't, again, hiding in caves playing Tetris. They weren't waiting for their they weren't scared. They controlled every province from Hemland to Kunar to, I can't say all these names, but Nangarhar up in eastern Afghanistan. They controlled the Mazar Sharif, the Herat, all in the north of Afghanistan. These guys were everywhere. So I don't understand how he is going to sit here and say that Trump is the problem here. This has been going on since George Bush in 2002 all the way up until 2021. The troop surge happened in 2012 under Barack Obama as president because he thought it was a great idea to allow the Afghanistan people to become the police and the military and we would become advisors and trainers and hope that these guys would become strong enough in time to defend themselves. That was proven to be absolutely false when Joe Biden decided, because he needed a political win on the 4th of July, he decided himself to abandon Bagram Airfield and the capital and go into the Kandahar NATO airfield, the smallest, most ridiculously indefensible position you could possibly put your ass in, and try to take large planes and lift and take off from that small airfield, which became an unbelievable security nightmare. That's not a Donald Trump problem. That's a Joe Biden problem. If you want to get even deeper into Joe Biden's bullshit, That entire withdrawal plan was a conditions-based withdrawal. It was a slow withdrawal plan. Had Trump had a complete second term, I don't think it would have happened in less than 30 days. It would have happened over time. As he had said many times before, he wasn't just going to pick up and leave, and he wasn't going to abandon the biggest airfield that Afghanistan had. There's no fucking way this would have went down that way. Joe Biden needed a win. His approval rating wasn't there. He was losing in the domestic front. He needed a win. And to sit there and the other argument that he brings up in other videos, he's like, well, it was Trump's plan. Yes, but if Joe Biden can throw out 100 executive orders, why does he have to all of a sudden follow this one? Ironclad this one. You know? That's the part that he was never asked about anyway. But it makes no sense what he is saying. Like, these 5,000 prisoners didn't tip the scale at all. It was stupidity from the United States of America, from the Biden administration, and that was all it was to it. You don't lose 13 Americans and blame the other guy who wasn't even in office. You blame the president. You blame the Joint Chiefs. You blame everybody in that administration. Nobody has had to answer for those 13 dead service members. Not one person. So this guy is a 100% imbecile, and you can even get further into this. Taliban in 2015 controlled 29 districts. 29 districts had full control. 36 districts were contested out of 398 districts. It's kind of like a county, if you will. And the Taliban claimed 34 additional districts after 2015. Okay, this didn't happen until 2021. So when you think about what had happened, and you think about the resurgence of the Taliban forces under Obama, which is why he didn't fully pull those last 10,000 troops out. When you think about the resurgence that happened in his final days of his presidency in 2014, and you think about Donald Trump and what he tried to do to mitigate that rise, you got to put the blame on Obama, Trump, and ultimately Biden for the decisions that were made. But you cannot sit there and say that Joe Biden is 100% absolved for his bullshit. He should not have pulled out of Bagram Airfield. He should not have left the Capitol until every troop was gone, every member that worked with the administration was gone. Then you can pull out of those areas. Think about what happened with the Afghan forces. They put their guns down. They didn't put up much of a fight. From those 5,000 mysterious prisoners that showed up out of nowhere, in addition to the 100,000 or more troops that just came out of the caves, come on, dude. This guy is a fucking dolt. Isaiah's never going to face any scrutiny. There's not much you can really put on that other than what I just said. Let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the news. Fox, because I got to go to Fox, right? Texas challenges Newsom's gas car crackdown, warning California can't dictate the auto market. The state of Texas is intervening in California's attempts to implement stricter vehicle emissions standards than those set by the federal government. After Congress and Trump revoked 3 waivers the Biden administration granted California, which allowed the state to set stricter vehicle emission standards than those at the federal level, Newsom immediately sued and issued an executive order directing state agencies to continue pushing the heightened standards. California attempted to circumvent Congress which could impact other states, since provisions of the Federal Clean Air Act allows them to adopt California's tougher emission regulations as opposed to federal baseline. Meanwhile, in a few weeks after Newsom's executive order, the Trump administration announced it would sue California in an effort to prevent them from trudging forward with an unlawful emissions standard. Now, Texas is also joining the fight to help Trump's legal group, America First Legal. So we have here a quote from Daniel Epstein, I guess it's Epstein. Oh, Epstein. Good God, I can say it. California's crusade is not about innovation. It is about abusing the illegal system to flout federal law and impose its radical agenda on all Americans. America First Legal stands proudly with the state of Texas to defend competition, consumer choice, and the rule of law. We will not let Gavin Newsom remake America in California's image. Texas motion to intervene filed Friday with the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, Oakland Division asked the court to allow Texas to become a part of the case so it can defend the interests of Texas, which State Attorney General Ken Paxton and the AFL say would be impacted by California's attempt to impose strict EV mandates and have an effect on the rest of the country. I'm standing with President Trump in his effort to stop Newsom and California from shoving its insane so-called green energy vehicle standards down the throat of the nation, said Paxton. Texas will not look the other way while the failed state of California undermines our sovereignty, attacks America's energy independence, and intentionally adopts destructive policies that would harm other states. Currently, 17 other states and the District of Columbia have chosen to adopt at least part of California's standards, according to a report released this month by the California Air Resource Board. The same report notes that collectively, these states represent 40% of the nation's light-duty vehicle market, 25% of its heavy-duty market. So I kind of like this, actually. And here's why. Gavin Newsom has been trolling the administration, and I've talked about this last week in the only episode, I believe the only episode I put out. But the difference is Donald Trump's been trolling for decades. Gavin Newsom decided to do it last month, so it's it's an inauthentic thing. Nobody really is buying into it. Although there's small pockets that are saying, "Ooh, thumbs up." But in any case, I like this attack from the administration because California loves to talk about how powerful they are. They love to talk about Gavin Newsom, basically, and a lot of the blue liberals that live out here. They like to talk about how powerful California is, how much pull California does have, how much they control the market because they're the fourth or the fifth largest economy, how they have all this money and this GDP and blah, blah, blah. But when they go to impose their will, they run into a brick wall called the federal government. And they are constantly thrown into court, whether it's EV standards, whether it's vehicle standards, whether it's EV emissions or whatever, or whether it's voting rights or whatever the case is. They love to try to sue the federal government, and they lose over half of those cases. And then there's other times where the federal government sues and puts California back in the doghouse. A lot of that, I'm all for it because Gavin Newsom thinks he's bigger than what he is, and I just feel like he needs to be slapped in the head a few times. I don't think it's going to really help, but it's a good idea. So this is the Fort Worth. This is a Texas deal here. Fort Worth Star Telegram. So. All right, so let's summarize this as best we can here. All right, so California Democrats have proposed a new congressional map. The headline is California map redraw draws backlash. So the California Democrats have proposed a new congressional map, obviously. He finally got it out of committee. He finally got it on the ballot. Special election in November. Because he's trying to cancel out what Texas is doing. So it's on there. It's allowing the mid-decade redraw. This move would bypass the state's independent redistricting commission, which typically handles these cases. The proposal is framed as a countermeasure to anticipate Republican gains in Texas, especially. That Mike Johnson has condemned the plan, calling it illegal, and mobilized GOP resources to oppose it. California Republicans are arguing the proposal undermines the integrity of the redistricting process, and Newsom has responded by mocking Johnson online, intensifying the issue. The Democratic strategy, though, it seems that they're aimed at retaining the congressional influence in response to national redistricting trends. And of course, critics are saying that it's setting a precedent that's going to become an issue later. Excuse me. I've talked about this before on my show and on Random Thoughts. This is going to be a really hard thing for Newsom to get done. I'm assuming it's still going to be challenged in the courts in November, regardless of how that vote turns. It doesn't seem like it's got enough steam, because it is illegal, because you are circumventing your own state constitution by doing this. You are going around some of your own laws that you put on the books yourself, loopholes and such, to get this done. I just honestly, in my heart, I think this is going to fail in November anyway, because a lot of this is ridiculous. It just is. And the attacks on Mike Johnson and his state, which has been going on fairly recently by Newsom, it is childish. It is petty. And when Trump does it, it's also petty. So it just, I'm so tired of the toddlers fighting in government, as it is anyway. The Associated Press. Police arrest an LA burglary crew suspected of 100 break-ins. Los Angeles law enforcement agencies have arrested a crew linked to 100 break-ins, officials announced on Monday. Multiple police agencies and the LA County Sheriff's deputies searched 8 homes at 5 a.m. on a Wednesday, arresting 7 men between the ages of 22 and 47. And they were all booked on charges, including burglary, possession of controlled substances while armed. Another man with an active warrant surrendered 2 days later. And 2 other men connected with the crew were already in custody facing murder charges. The suspects, 10 in total, were all repeat offenders and confirmed gang members, according to police. The crew is linked to at least 92 residential burglaries dating back to 2022, with the most incidences occurring in 2024 and 2025. Jim McDonald, the LA chief, said what made this takedown possible was the outstanding work of our officers and detectives, communicating across divisions and bureaus, sharing intelligence, and connecting the dots that revealed these burglars were tied to the same crew. District Attorney Nathan Hodgman, who was elected last fall on a platform of cracking down on crime, said in a statement that his office would not hesitate to seek the maximum penalty. During Wednesday's operation, officials recovered stolen watches, bracelets, high-end purses, wallets, and cash. They also found burglary tools like window-breaking devices, handheld radios, large amounts of ammunition, firearms, narcotics, money counters, multiple cell phones. Police also served a search warrant in April 2025 at a home linked to the crew and found large numbers of firearms, ammunition, stolen credit cards, and fake IDs. Well, it's about time California actually decided to crack down on crime, huh? My goodness. Well, kids, that is all I have. Those are my to-dos. And I would like to also close by saying thank you once again. I really do appreciate being a top 200 podcast in Denmark And hopefully I can get that out here in the United States. Be kind of cool, huh? At least crack the 200. And I do appreciate you guys, bottom of the old heart, you know. I do appreciate the listeners. I do appreciate the feedback when it comes in. I do like I do like the interactions when they occur. It's really cool to come in contact with people from other areas. Be like, oh shit, you know, you too. Oh yeah, it's kind of neat. And I hope that this thing just keeps on going. You know, all I can ask, you know, and I know it sounds like I'm begging, but all I can ask is if you like it, share it with your friends. Leave 5 stars on your Apples and your Spotifys and your podcast addicts, and come back for the next one. See you later.